What are these things in our sky? What do we know, and how do we know it? Who is out there or isn't? This is where we become the ones making the extraordinary claim.
We are extremely pleased to have director Brian Dunning, because the film we're talking about today is called The UFO Movie They Don't Want You to See. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much. It's a lot of fun to be here.
I'm going to pass it off to Marc, who one of our hosts, who's going to start asking you questions.
Some people label you as a skeptical activist. Do you accept that label? And how lonely is life in America as a skeptic?
I refer to myself as a science writer. Pretty simple. Science communicators, we're almost always on the underdog side. It seems that it's politically correct to believe in weird things that are demonstrably not true these days. It's never easy in America as a science communicator.
Now, I'll go back to the 90s. He had a great voice, he had great music, but seriously, how much did Art Bell contribute to misinformation on this topic?
You know, if it hadn't been Art Bell, it would have been someone else, and if it hadn't have been them, it would have been someone else. And misinformation is not new. I mean, this is something that's been around since we have historical records. I mean, you can go back 4,000 years and find misinformation and agenda-driven information. Kind of a follow-up question to what you just said would be, does the internet make it easier or harder for misinformation to spread? My answer to that is always, a rising tide lifts all boats equally. It's easier for good information, it's easier for bad information. I don't see any one side winning out absolutely over the other.
Now, I read somewhere the movie was crowdfunded. Can you tell us more about that?
I work for Skeptoid Media. We're a 501c3 educational nonprofit, and so all of our projects are funded by private grants and donations. And so that's how this movie was as well. These grassroots documentaries, they don't make any money. They're not likely to make any money. If you tried to go out with conventional investors, I mean, nobody's going to get their money back. And so you kind of have to rely on the people who believe in the importance of the educational mission. People would throw money at this film to help get it made because they believe in the importance of getting this information out there.
Now, how easy was it to get scientists, astronomers, and skeptics to come forward and actually show their skeptical stripes? Were they reticent? Were they worried about any flack?
No, not at all. I mean, everyone in the film has been doing this for a long time. And we're all very familiar with the upsides and downsides of taking a public stand for science. It doesn't seem like that should be something that's going to draw a lot of flack, but it does. And we've all been there a million times, and we all knew what to expect. So if you look at the comments the film generates, 95% of them are very hostile, because the film is not saying that, it's not acknowledging, yes, aliens do visit the Earth regularly. And there are a lot of people out there to whom that's an absolute, to whom it's a religion. And so this film is heretical.
Yeah, well, actually, these non-skeptics, are they trying to debunk your movie, and how funny is it?
Well, I mean, you can't look at it in terms of an us versus them thing. It's really difficult to talk about the subject without putting it in those terms. But I really believe that everyone wants to believe what's right. Everyone thinks that what they believe is true. No one is out there actively trying to be misinformation, trying to spread information that they know to be false. So in a sense, we're all on the same side here. And what really divides us is the quality of evidence that we accept, and whether or not that evidence accepts our preferred worldview, however we want the world to be. Everyone wants aliens to be visiting us. We'd all love for that to be true. It's just that where the dividing line is on what we consider to be evidence that actually happens.
Well, what I found amazing about the topics that you raised, that you actually went into the whole SETI, the exobiology. And I thought that was really amazing, because a lot of people assume that if you're anti-UFO, then you're anti-alien. And in fact, you're not at all the case in what you develop. Now, I'm really curious about what the next step is in this attempt at I don't want to say correcting people, but educating them. What's the next step? Like, you've done a great movie. Are you going to get it on the streamers? Are you going to be able to tour schools, universities? What's the next step?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, it's grassroots distribution through Film Hub. So it just appeared, actually, it appeared on Amazon Prime today twice. There's 2 copies
Really?
of it on there. The last few weeks, it's been featured on Tubi, meaning it's getting recommended to people, which means it's getting far more views than it typically would, which is fantastic. I mean, again, the educational mission is, we're not profit driven, we're mission driven. So the more eyeballs that see the film, the better. So I'd like to get it out there as much as possible. I haven't done any yet, but I've already got several trips to universities and so forth around the country. We're going to be doing screenings and having a Q&A just like this.
Great. Now, do you believe that we'll get tangible proof of exobiological evidence in our lifetimes?
So obviously nobody knows. So it's just this matter purely of opinion. I feel that the next generation of space telescope following James Webb, I do believe that that one will have the capability to resolve, well, we know it'll have the capability to resolve both technosignatures and biosignatures. And I'm giving that one an 80% chance of finding them. I give James Webb about a 10% chance. Once Habitable World gets up there, probably on a 20 to 30 year time frame, I do believe we're probably going to get that information. Personal opinion, and I'm super excited about it.
If you could spend an evening, who would it be with? Carl Sagan, James Randi, or Karl Popper?
I've spent many evenings with James Randi before he passed away.
No way.
Yeah. I'd have to go with Carl Sagan. That guy had some kind of magic. Cosmos was, for 10 years, the most popular program ever broadcast on PBS until it got knocked off by the Civil War series. But for a science series to be popular rather than, a ghost hunting series is extraordinary. That just doesn't happen. So whatever Carl Sagan had to actually get people on board with a pro-science, anti-pseudoscience message, that's something that I think we could all stand to learn a little bit better. I'd love to get on that train.
One of the secrets is I'm in education, and works like yours are absolutely necessary, especially with the teenagers who get most of their information from TikTok. I'll send it over to Lili, and thank you so much for answering my questions.
Brian, thank you so much for being with us. This is Carl Sagan. What do I have in my head? Billions and billions.
Billions
and maybe,
and billions.
And maybe that was it. You just need to bring that phrase back in. So what drew you to the skeptic science writer? There must have been something, in the past that it just drew you to this topic. How did you end up here?
It's really market-driven forces. We focus on our nonprofit Skeptoid Media. We focus on science versus pseudoscience. And that's a pretty broad topic. I mean, that covers urban legends, real history versus pseudo-history, paranormal claims, UFO and alien claims, conspiracy theories. It's a really wide playing field. So we cover hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different topics. So when it comes time to make a movie, that's a pretty major project. It consumes the whole company for an entire year. And you want to make sure you're taking your biggest swing that you can. So we literally asked the question, what should this next movie be about? And what had been the most popular science versus pseudoscience topic in the news for years? It's been UFOs. So it was really an easy choice. So yeah, it was really the market, and where is the biggest need for this information.
Well, and then in the movie you mentioned, the pseudoscience and pseudo-history, and then where is it? It's the History Channel, like all of the windows of the History Channel. Talk to us about that. How does, I know that there's a lot of people that go to the History Channels like this is history. I am learning. I'm becoming enlightened.
It's funny, when those cable networks started, I think Discovery Channel was probably the first of them. And this was what, 90, 80, late 80s, I think. They presented legit science programming, and it was mostly nature documentaries. And they, for a while, were playing some old Nova episodes off of PBS. I think somewhere along the line, they just realized, hey, we get a lot more eyeballs the more sensationalized our programming is. And that's kind of the thread that every one of these networks has followed, from Animal Planet to Travel Channel, all the way down through. Nat Geo was one of the early ones to flip as well. And now all of their top programs are the the pseudoscience shows. Ghost hunting and ancient aliens, all of this alternative history things. Yeah, it's so much easier to make sensationalized nonsense programming where you can just say whatever the heck you want to say. In science communication, we're limited to what's actually true. So there's less for us to say, which means to make a sensational program, you have to work a lot harder. You know, I'm the first to admit that this film was more of the Al Gore version of, you know, more of a PowerPoint presentation than it was a wild and wacky journey that's going to get lots of people jumping into their seats like they're watching Iron Man 5. It's difficult to do, especially with a limited budget, which is what we had. So it's very tough to compete with pure pseudoscience programming.
As a kid, were you then drawn to the sciences, or were you drawn first at the UFOs and then you came to bring the two together? How did that work?
Yeah, I can answer for virtually everyone who works in science communication, because we all have the same story. We all grew up with all of the books about the Bermuda Triangle and Bigfoot and the Amityville Horror. We had an equal amount of these nonsense books. We believed every word of them, and science fiction novels. And we wanted them all to be true. And then when you get older and you go to college and you start to learn these things, and you retain that curiosity for these incredible stories. And now you have the means to actually solve them. What actually happened at the Amityville Horror? That was an incredible thing for me to learn. It's so eye-opening and it's so exciting to finally learn the reality behind these famous mysteries, instead of just stopping at the pop culture paranormal explanation. It was a ghost, it was an alien, that's it. I don't want to know anything more about it. Don't tell me anything else. It's like, if you're truly curious, you do want to go further and you do want to find out what actually happens.
Well, and you mentioned in the film that there were 3 things that happened to you that you were like, oh, I was there, but then like you had to debunk your own events. Are you willing to share that with us? What
Oh, sure. One of them, probably the neatest one, was I was in Death Valley with 2 friends camping out. Just what you hear described, an enormous black triangle shape that blocked out a lot of the sky, went overhead and went from horizon to horizon, and we watched it the entire way. Absolutely mind blown. It circled around probably 15-20 minutes later and came by a second time. And that's when we realized what it was. People familiar with Death Valley may know it's right near the China Lake Naval Air Station. It was a formation of planes doing aerial refueling at night. And once you see it, it's like, it's so obvious. That's that plane, and that's the plane, and that's the guy who's waiting on deck and everything. And it was really cool. For me, it was incredibly exciting to actually be witnessing something that was inexplicable. Man, my mind was absolutely blown. I know that's a lame expression and a cliche, but it was. And then to figure it out was just as exciting. Another time was the first time I saw a Starlink train. I did not know that that's how Starlink satellites deployed. I just never happened to hear that. To see this absolutely perfect line of UFOs flying across the sky that clearly couldn't have been satellites, they couldn't have been airplanes, that was equally amazing. And then I got online after that and figured, oh, that's a Starlink train. How incredible. That's very cool. And now they're fun to see. And the third one, a friend of mine told me that he had a repeatable UFO that he could see fly by his apartment every night. And I went to his house and we saw it. He described what we were going to see, and it finally happened and we saw it. And it was this light that flew by over his parking lot outside his apartment building. Long story short, we solved it. It was the apartment, the entrance to the apartment complex had one of those convex mirrors so that cars can see cars coming down the road. If a car was turning at the intersection in a certain way, its headlights would pan across that convex mirror, and that would reflect the headlight beam along a power line that was going over the parking lot. And so you had just this little section of light along the power line. And if you didn't know the power line was there, it looked more than anything like a weird light shooting across the sky. It's really fun to solve the mysteries instead of just stopping at, it was an alien and don't tell me anything further.
I guess our human species, is it the delusion of grandeur that we have, that we're thinking, oh, you know, aliens are going to come here. They're going to find us. We're so fascinating. Is it, I don't know, there are more interesting things to see out in space?
So we have exactly one data point for what we think an alien civilization might think or might do. and that's ourselves. And if we learned that there was any life anywhere of any kind, I mean, it would be a full court press. We would throw everything we have at finding out as much as we can about it. If it was actually an intelligent civilization that we could converse with, oh my God, that'd be the biggest thing to ever happen to Earth. But I mean, look at us. We think that there might be these organic compounds on Europa, and so we're sending the Europa lander and all of this stuff. We're doing everything we can to get out there to find it. I think, my guess, again, this is opinion because we don't know, is that aliens would be just as curious about us as we would about them. One thing that I hear a lot that is not persuasive to me is people who say, oh, the aliens would skip right past Earth when they see what a horrible species we are. That is such nonsense, I think. That is utter nonsense. Think how much they would have to learn about us to learn that we're a horrible species that they want nothing to do with. And they're still not going to want to study us or learn about our biosphere or anything. I just don't buy that at all. I think it's a silly human-centric objection.
Brian, I wanted to ask you, do you feel that humans have a need for these pseudoscientific ideas? Are we just so afraid of what if this is not true, or what if we really are alone, or what if the climate really is changing, or what if is it a self-defense mechanism that causes people to believe in pseudoscience?
I think I mean, for some people, yeah, probably that is an explanation. For a lot of people, I think it's just a need to want to know. Most people don't have a scientific background, and so a very simple explanation is something that's very easy to wrap your head around and easy to embrace. It was a ghost or it was an alien is a pretty simple explanation, and it's an approachable one, and it's one that fits and works for a lot of people without them having to go out and learn a bunch of stuff. And for a lot of people, it's just extreme wishful thinking to the point that they have convinced themselves that it's true. We see this a lot with, for example, grieving people who believe in ghosts because they need their deceased loved one to be real and to be able to contact them. So I think there's nearly as many explanations for why people embrace strange beliefs as there are people who embrace them.
When you were talking about the networks and how they had sort of discovered that pseudoscience is way more profitable than actual science, is your company Skeptoid? Are you set up at all, or even thinking about, or even considering the dream of perhaps having your own network at some point?
We're always trying to grow. We're always pursuing grants, and we've always got new programming that we're trying to get funded. We're in the very earliest stages of another feature film. I don't think it would ever go on to television. I think that comes with a lot of baggage and a lot of requirements and a lot of stakeholders whose mission is not necessarily the same as yours. So I think we're better able to do what we do at the scale that we're at.
Why is it aliens always contact American presidents? Have they also been known, or have you been going over stories of aliens contacting the Argentinian president?
One of the interesting things is that the people who believe that the government is in contact with aliens and is covering it up, they always believe that the government has all of this data that they keep secret from the public. And what generally people aren't aware of is, okay, where does that data come from? Almost all the data that NASA has comes from citizen scientists around the world. The government, quote unquote, is not the greatest astronomer in the world doing all the work and collecting all the images and all the data. It's people everywhere. So how would it even be remotely possible for the government to keep information secret that they're not even the ones who collected it? That's a really fun and interesting counter argument to that particular conspiracy theory claim.
What immediately went through your mind when you saw the China balloon?
I mean, there wasn't much mystery about that. I mean, we've known for years, all nations are always doing this kind of thing, floating balloons and satellites and spy planes over each other. There was nothing new about that. I don't know why this one got so popular, probably just because the UFO topic was so popular. It was so tragically bizarre, and what happened, how they went out with F-16s and are shooting $5 million missiles. One of these was a classroom weather balloon project that was worth $10. They shot it down with a $5 million missile and a $50 million airplane. How out of control and how crazy that got was just a weird comment on sort of the public mania concerning UFOs.
Why are aliens from another planet so sexy, and why does everyone want one in their lives?
I guess I haven't seen those same photographs to make that judgment, but it is true that I've never met anyone who would not love to know aliens. If we can imagine, and I think most of us agree that there's probably somewhere in space an alien civilization with intelligent beings, and just the thought of that is incredible. What do they look like? Do they have computers? Do they have cars? Do they have horses? And what do those horses look like that they ride around? This is something that astrobiologists think about. These are some of the variables of the Drake equation. It's like, okay, to become technological, you have to have metal, so you can make electronics and stuff. So you have to be able to forge metal. So you have to be able to control fire. You have to be able to light fire. You probably have to have something like hands to manipulate your environment. There's so many things that I think would be surprisingly similar between us and an alien civilization. And of course, we can't know that. So I'd probably be proven wrong if we could see what that civilization does look like. And that's just such an attractive question. It's just, I don't think people can resist it. We want to see them. We want to see what that's about.
Was the movie Contact more fact than fiction?
The whole science fiction aspect of it in terms of the alien civilization that was in that, I thought Carl Sagan wrote the book, right? He knew what he was doing. He knew these topics. And in that movie, no one was physically traveling from planet to planet. It was more of an electronic communication. But that's what it was. And I think Carl understood that if we do get in touch with an alien civilization, it's likely to be through this kind of medium, through this kind of, an electronic communication medium in some way, radio or whatever you want to call that, whatever it was. In that sense, I thought it was very realistic. It was certainly more realistic than the idea of a flying saucer coming and landing on the White House lawn, more realistic than Independence Day and all of these things.
How difficult is it to get permissions to film in all of these places where there's so much technology?
Yeah, I had every filming permit situation from incredibly easy to incredibly difficult to impossible. When we shot Lieutenant Colonel Hal Bidlack, who was talking about the nuclear missile crisis or the event in 1967, they actually had the control center that he worked in is actually in a museum on an Air Force base in Colorado Springs near his house. And it's the actual one he actually worked in. So we were going to shoot in there, in the actual control center for one of these silos. And so I had to get a filming permit from the museum. The museum said, fantastic, this is great, we love education, come and do it. But you do need to get a permit, and it's on a military base. So I had to go through the military liaison office in Los Angeles. And that was just an absolute nightmare. They wouldn't give me the time of day. And so we were not able to film there. And then other places, like at the 107-inch telescope, where we shot Dr. Caitlin Rasmussen, they were delighted to do it too. I had to pay a pretty hefty fee, but they couldn't have made it easier. And we had the full run of the place, and it was just lovely. Working as a nonprofit is interesting. There are places that are delighted to work with you and will give you a fantastic deal. And there are places that won't work with you at all because they figure, oh, they don't have any money. No, pass, go shoot somewhere else. So sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder.
Brian, what have you learned about yourself through the making of this particular film?
That I should not try and have as minimal a production staff as I had on this film. I learned that myself, and I have more human limits than I thought I might have done. I did a lot of this production solo. Some of it was completely solo, some of it was with local people, but all of it was very, very shoestring, and that was a mistake. That made it much, much more difficult on me physically and psychologically in every way. It was very, very difficult. Take it easier on yourself as a filmmaker than I did.